Greetings, everyone. Welcome to one of our Friday community classes right here on the YouTube. I post these every week, so if you're interested in this kind of material, please like and subscribe. Let me know you're out there. I am recording this morning at one of my favorite sit spots. I'm just a couple miles outside of Salt Lake City and surrounded by gamble oak and hawthorn and dog rose and myrtle spurge and lots of squirrels and some birds. And this is how I am spending the morning of my 45th birthday this year, as I tend to do most years, coming up and seeing the autumn leaves and sort of just experiencing the slow change of the land. And what I want to talk about this week as we enter into Hallows season is Wortcunning in a modern context. Wortcunning as it could look for a modern practitioner. I consider myself a practitioner of the cunning arts, and so I think it's different for a lot of people, but I want to share just a few concepts, a few ideas with you, maybe some inspiration and some new ways to think about this kind of work. So first, considering our herb-wise ancestral practices of herbal magic and herbal medicine is very important, because without at least some connection to it, we just don't have roots, right? We don't have a root system that reaches into the nourishing places of the past. And everything feels really insulated and it feels really allopathic and reductionist because it's kind of being held in the moment rather than being held as one big practice that's rooted in the timeless. So for me, when I started investigating the herbal traditions of my deep ancestors and trying to figure out ways to pour that wisdom liquid into the vessel of now and see what it might look like, it really did dramatically change the work for me. It changed how I experienced plants, how I thought about the work, how I thought about community, how I thought about my own learning. And I think that's really important, definitely was for me. When we think about what these ancient herb-wise practices might look like in a modern context, we really have to think about what they might have looked like first and foremost for the people who recorded the information. Now, the recorded aspects of Wortcunning don't go back that far, right? We have stuff from kind of the 10th century onwards, and a lot of it is plant lore, a lot of it is remedy, a lot of it is charm and ritual. Not much of it is, here's, a day in the life of the local village wise woman, right? We don't really have those stories. So we have to piece together through folklore, through fairy lore, through fairy tales, through mythology, and through the ways that people talk about plants to kind of figure out, what were these people actually doing? What did this actually look like? And when we come into early modern practices like cunning folk traditions, we actually do have a little bit more story, because we have people saying, such and such guy in this village was doing this and this and this with these people, and the church didn't like it, so they shut it down. So we have some stuff, but again, that's really early modern, and that is based off of and informed by older traditions that they pieced together and mixed with ceremonial magic and mixed with this and mixed with that. But I like to go back, a little further if we can. And what we see time and time again in the lore is this concept of, and I think all of us in the English speaking world will have some level of a cultural connection to this archetype. We see this village wise woman who lives at the edge of town, right? She's close enough to the village to keep a pulse on the people, but far enough away from it not to get sucked up in it. And similarly, she's close enough to the wild spaces to maintain her relationship with those places, right? And she's oftentimes solitary, living alone, or maybe with a student or an apprentice. But again, we don't know for sure that she didn't have a partner of some sort. And we see her working deeply with the plants and the animals and the spirits of place, the elder gods and the ancestors, in order to gain wisdom and information that she can then use in service of her community. Because what we see is folks in the village getting sick, being confused, being, needing some kind of support or help, whether it's protection and cleansing or confession and the resolving of guilt, or healing a broken bone, or helping bring a life into the world, or helping somebody ease out of the world, having to make a little trek, like a little pilgrimage, right, from the nice straight rows of the village out just a little closer into the wildness. It's a little bit of a way that we drop into an altered state of consciousness, right? It slows things down, it changes things. And they come and they seek her counsel. And because she has 1 foot in the green realm, 1 foot in the other world, and 1 foot in this world, she's able to act as a go-between, sharing the information that she's gleaned through her hard-won work with the spirits, with that community, knowing which plants can help that person heal, which rituals, which places of power, what they can do, who they can work with, what taboos, what rituals, all of that stuff, sharing charms and petitions with them. And so she's at once herbalist, midwife, death doula, ritualist, priestess, wisdom keeper, lore keeper, storyteller. And all of that is so important, right? Because these are all things that we miss so much in our modern world. Not every culture or tradition, many traditions and cultures still have all of these things in place, but speaking specifically of my own, there's a lack, right? We don't really have all this. So for me, if we can figure out how to recall and re-embody this wisdom in a way that speaks to where we are now, how the world is now, who we are as people now, this is quite powerful. And to really take herbal work out of the box that says herbal work is only about physical medicine, right? It's only about healing the body. And of course it is, right? We know herbal medicine is a thing, but there's so much more to that. The plants, as we see in the folklore, as we see the plants addressed in the Wortcunning texts, are seen and experienced and worked with as arcane spirits who are filled with wisdom, who are rooted in otherness, and who draw up otherness into our world. They're connected into the primal, into the substrate, and they are our great teachers and our great sustainers. They emerged with us from the great matriarchal ocean of life, and they have watched us since the beginning. They're older than we are. They've seen everything there is to see. There's nothing new that we can bring to them. So when we engage with them through these perspectives of Wortcunning, and we consider how can we, as individuals called into a verdant path, work with the plants and ally ourselves to the plants in such a way that we can then act as go-betweens for our communities, right? We can then provide herbal medicine and herbal magic, herbal ritual and herbal wisdom to the people who come to us for those various services. And the nuances, the nitty-gritty of how that's going to look for each person in each place that's up to you to figure out. But what I really want to cover here and really want to focus on, I think, is this idea that the plants are and always have been such important allies for us in the world. And there's perhaps no more important time in the timeline of history than now for us to be connecting with them and working with them and asking for their help and opening ourselves up to fully receive the help that they give. The Wortcunning traditions are chock full of charms and enchantments that talk about protecting us from poisons and protecting us from serpents and drawing out the infestation of worms. And these things are not literal, right? They talk about the invasion of ideas and energies and traumas and griefs that have gotten into the deep part of us and have started to eat away at us. And this is an example of how we take the language and the practices of the ancient and consider what something they were going through, something that their life would look like for what we're going through and what our life is, right? So these aspects of retrieving lost parts of the self, or expelling intrusive energies and intrusive ideas from the self are as true for us now as they were in 10th century England, right? All of it is relevant. The plant's wisdom is here for us just as much as it always has been. So we have to read and study and contemplate the lore left to us by our herbwise ancestors, whether that's through various herbals or fairy tales or folklore or mythologies and stories. And we have to try to catch and embody that here. That's how the work is rooted in the timeless, right? We have blessings from our herbwise ancestors that have been handed on in the form of story, whether that's here's how we worked with this herb, or here's this formula that we used for this thing, or an actual story, like an actual bit of fairy tale. We also have to put the work in. We are human people living in a human-centric world, most of us, and for us to get out of our own way and be able to step into spaces of otherness requires a lot of work, right? It's hard enough for us to have deep and abiding relationships with other humans, let alone stepping into spaces of otherness to have deep and abiding relationships with plants, with animals, with spirits of place, with our ancestors, with the old gods. It's very challenging work, right? I was thinking about that this morning on my hike into this place, that even to be able to find moments of quiet or just spaces where we can come sit and be, right? It's increasingly more difficult for a lot of us. So we have to protect this work so much, and we have to really find the plants that show up for us, that exist around us, that thrive around us, and really get into deep relationship with them and learn from them how we, like them, can become bridges between the worlds, how we can draw up from the primordial otherness in service of community, however that looks, right? For folks who are called and initiated by the plant spirits into this work, it is an all-consuming, all-obsessive, it's what we think about when we fall asleep at night, it's what we think about when we wake up in the morning, it's what we're chewing on all day long, but there's really room for all of us to engage more with the plants. They really, our well-being, our existence is hung on the branches of the world tree. They really take good care of us, and so the more we engage, the better. And that's that. So let me give you just a couple of minutes of personal perspective, and then we'll wrap this up. As somebody who practices some iteration, something inspired by ancient Wortcunning traditions now, my work looks like this. I go into a clinic every single day. I work in a clinic that is shared with acupuncturists, and I have my beautiful wall of herbs and all of my handcrafted remedies that have been made by plants that I've gardened or gathered or gotten from friends. And folks get to come in to see me, and we get to spend an hour and a half or 2 hours together exploring the things in their life that are feeling out of sorts, right? Whether they are sick or disconnected or disharmonious. And through my relationship with the plants, I'm inspired to connect them, act as matchmaker with other plants. And we do that through herbal medicine, through guided meditation and journey work, through rituals built around bringing the plant wisdom deeper into the person's life. And that's it. It's very simple. I'm not an old village wizard, an old village wise man living in a cool little thatched hut on the outskirts of town. I'm practicing in a really beautiful clinic in the middle of the city. But the storyline is the same, right? People come in sick from disconnection, right? All illness, all accident, all pain is just communication of how we've gotten out of harmony, how we've gotten out of rhythm with the nature of things. And so folks come in, and together we petition the plants through a variety of different methods to help bring us back into harmony, right? And we do that and we feel better and we feel more ourselves, and then we do it again, and then we do it again, right? This is a lifelong process for all of us, myself included. So for me, on the surface, it looks very clinical. It looks very, oh, this is what I thought, somebody who was a professional herbalist, this is what their life would look like. But there is a depth to it. There are conversations that I get to have with people. There are ritual workings that I get to do with folks that make this so special and so meaningful and so transformative, both for them and for myself. So very cool. And that's what it looks like, for me anyway. So with that, I will wrap this up. Thank you for hanging tight through this slightly rambly presentation. I'm going to be spending this month talking about this kind of material, our herb-wise ancestors, how our practice can be rooted in the past. And so I hope you will watch all of the classes that come out this October 2024 and enjoy. Let me know if you have any questions or ideas down in the comments below. I'll see you next time.